Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, political banter between Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and APC National Chairman Adams Oshomole rages on as the governor insists that his predecessor suspension from the state chapter of the party stands. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami absolves the federal government of El-Zakzaki's continuous detention, insists the federal government was not under pressure to release Showore and Dasuki. Tonight we continue with our review of the outgoing year with a focus on the National Assembly's activities in 2019, and at least 12 persons killed as passenger jet crashes in southern Kazakhstan, leaving several others injured and 10 in critical condition.
On business news tonight, NNPC and its joint venture partners announced final investment decision for multi-billion-dollar Train 7 project of the Nigerian liquefied natural gas company.
And on sports news tonight, Zlatan Ibrahimovic returns to AC Milan on a free transfer until the end of the season with an option for a further year.
From Abuja, President Muhammadu Buhari appeals to Nigerians not to allow terrorists divide the country along religious lines following viral execution video by insurgents.
Fresh indications emerged today that the long-drawn war of words between the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, and the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshomole, may not end anytime soon, as the governor insists that his predecessor remains suspended from the state chapter of the party. Governor Obaseki alleges that his party's national chairman has been such a negative influence in the affairs of Edo State in spite of efforts by the party to bring economic development to the people. Governor Obaseki explained this at the caucus meeting involving leaders of the APC in Edo North Senatorial District.
We don't want to look at the past because we're all part of that administration. That is why you don't see us on the pages of the newspaper coming to say, you did this, you did that, you didn't do that. Nobody has ever heard me come out and say, this is the amount of debt he left behind. That we are part of the same family. So when somebody comes and says, oh, you haven't done that, you didn't give leaders this, you didn't give them that, you want me to come and be telling the same leaders what to did? Let us keep our secrets home. The last 3 years, we said, let us redefine Edo State. Let us emphasize on our people. Let us take care. Tomorrow must come. Our children must grow. We don't want things to be worse for them than it is today. I am the leader of APC and it is the person who is causing antipathy, who has created his own faction of APC that will leave. If you can't be a disciplined member of our party, you will leave. Whether you claim to be national chairman or not. Position is clear.
Lawmaker-elect of the State House of Assembly, Mr. Chris Okayaben, insists that the suspension of Mr. Oshomole was without recourse to the party's constitution. Mr. Okayaben also told Channels Television that Governor Godwin Obaseki was amongst those that recently attended the party's National Executive Council meeting called by the allegedly suspended national chairman.
And after taking the money, they said we have suspended the national chairman because none of them have ever cited the party constitution. None of them have ever cited the party constitution. But what will interest you to know, the man you say you have suspended, not up to 2 weeks, less than a week, or even a week later, has caused a NEC meeting and a National Working Committee meeting, a NEC meeting to take place. And I would have expected that you say you have suspended the same national chairman, and he is the only man empowered by the constitution of the party to announce the NEC meeting. And he announced the NEC meeting, you flew into Abuja with a private jet, and the private jet was steaming in the airport, just for you to attend the NEC meeting because you knew the importance of the NEC meeting. In that same neck meeting, the state chairman that was suspended, who you were holding in your hand like your baby, you were told that he was not invited for that meeting. And you could not say, because my chairman was not allowed to enter, I will not enter this next meeting. But yet you entered. You entered. The same man you said was suspended. And the same man you are saying is suspended is the same man you are going to meet between February and March. Because I don't think there's any other APCO. What he wants to create in Edo is the new APC, as they did those days in the days of PDP.
Tonight, we continue with the series on the performance of the various sectors in the outgoing year with a focus on the National Assembly. For some analysts, 2019 was a mixed bag of highs and lows for the 19th Assembly, while some commend the federal lawmakers for their prompt passage of the 2020 budget. Others argue that the Parliament in 2019 did not play its constitutional role of checking the executive. Our correspondent Linda Kibe now reports.
The Ninth Assembly was inaugurated on June 11, 2019, with the ruling All Progressives Congress maintaining majority seats in the Senate and House of Representatives. The beginning of the Ninth Assembly was not as acrimonious as that of the Eighth Assembly. In the Eighth Assembly, the APC as a party was not in favor of the key principal officers of the Assembly, and this contributed to the strained relationship between the presidency and the legislature for 4 years. In the case of the Ninth Assembly, the ruling APC was determined to ensure that its preferred candidates emerge as the principal officers in the Senate and House of Representatives. Senators Ahmed Lawan and Ovie Omo-Agege were elected as Senate and Deputy Senate President, while Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila was elected as Speaker, and Idris Wase emerged Deputy Speaker unopposed.
So help me God.
One of the early concerns raised by keen observers of Parliament was the likelihood of a Ninth Assembly not asserting its independence and acting as a rubber stamp to the executive. Critics based this concern on how the major principal officers of the National Assembly emerged, particularly as it appeared that they were personally selected by the party and by extension the presidency. The comments made by the Senate President also amplify this concern.
I want to assure you that any request that comes from Mr. President is a request that will make Nigeria a better place, either in terms of appointments or legislation. And the Senate will act expeditiously.
The legislature is not supposed to be like an extension of the executive. They are not supposed to be like the government in itself. It's supposed to be like we, the people, having eyes and ears inside the system, and so they're looking at what's our interest.
But federal lawmakers dismissed the allegations that the Ninth Assembly will be a rubber stamp to the executive.
You've seen issues where we disagree in one or two things. That does not mean that we have to be in conflict with the executive at all times or with the president at all times. If there are issues that we need to disagree, we will basically disagree with those issues.
In terms of legislations proposed in the last 6 months by the Ninth Assembly, none was as controversial and placed Parliament on a collision course with the public as much as a social media bill and the bill to establish a commission on hate speech. The commentary in the public sphere was brutal as Nigerians exclaimed that these bills are intended to stifle free speech.
They're looking for a way to control that media, to be able to monitor what is being said, how it's being said, and who it reaches. And if the legislator is asking for 37 billion, this legislature is asking for 37 billion to renovate their, their house, as I would like to call it, the National Assembly. That means they're not taking into cognizance the pulse of the people. This is not the time. This is not the greatest need.
The Ninth Assembly scored a huge win by passing the national budget in December 2019, returning the country to a one-year budget cycle, an accomplishment not achieved by previous parliaments in recent times. Going into 2020, Nigerians would want to see a National Assembly step up to its constitutional role of checking the executive, efficiently oversighting government MDAs and passing critical legislations to pull Nigeria out of the unenviable ranking of the country with the largest number of extreme poor people in the world. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
We're now being joined on the news at 10 by Mr. Oke Epia, the Executive Director of Order Paper Nigeria, an online publication on the National Assembly, to take a look at the activities of the Nation's Assembly in 2019. Many thanks indeed for joining us on the news at 10. There's been a change of guard at the National Assembly this year. It's not a secret, therefore, that there was no love lost between the 8th National Assembly and the Executive. It's been 6 months down the line now. How would you describe the relationship so far between the two arms of government?
Thank you, Gimba, for having me here, and compliments of the season to your viewers. My comments will be straight away. We are having a pliant National Assembly, and for all intent and purposes, for the sake of democracy and the deepening of democratic practice, I do not think that this is what we should have. Nobody's asking the National Assembly to go on confrontation, rage with the executive. But everyone expects that the National Assembly would sit up and, defend its constitutionally provided positions as a presidential democracy that we practice. We expect to see a National Assembly that will stand up for the interest of the people, that will provide for, enabling laws and, oversight performance roles that would strengthen democratic, practice, especially with respect to, the freedom of expression, and the right to hold opinions, which appear to be having a great serious pushback, from some quarters. We expect the National Assembly not to be part of a move by the base that, the report earlier referred to, the social media bills, the hate speech bills. These bills are not, they are not consistent with the tenets of promoting democratic practice in this country.
So then, how would you describe the 9th Assembly now in terms of the quality of those bills? You're talking about those ones that have been passed and those ones that have been debated on?
Well, to make the point clear, it is not to say that the National Assembly in the last 6 months has not recorded some good commendable attempts at legislation. I mean, we know that they have, for instance, passed the Production Sharing Contract Amendment Bill in the oil sector, which is one that has gladdened the hearts of many Nigerians. They have also passed in the House of Reps, a bill against the estimated billing in the electricity sector. We have the recommitter of the sexual harassment bill in the Senate, in response, swift response, I must say, to the Sex for Grades scandal that occurred earlier in the year. Yeah, so there's been a couple of flashes of good intentions from the National Assembly. But the point must be made is that they say it takes a little fox to spoil the entire lot, and that's what's going on. We need to be careful. We do not want to entertain and be seen to be entertaining or providing support for attempts that are aimed at constricting the civic space. And that is where we, I join my voice this evening to ask that the National Assembly reconsiders its move to get along with those bills. Those two bills are not consistent, I repeat, with democratic practice, especially within the context of our environments in the country at the moment.
I think that's a very good place to let it rest. I must thank you very much indeed, Mr. Oke Epia, the Executive Director of Order Paper Nigeria, an online publication on the National Assembly. Many thanks indeed for talking to us here on the News at 10.